This is the DRS train.
Never gets old. I'm Peter Brook, I'm joined by Yakari, and you're listening to the DRS Train podcast. Goodness me, what a momentous occasion this has been in the championship. Las Vegas had very good qualifying, wet one. The race was okay. It's what happened after the race that's really quite significant, and maybe, even though strictly speaking they're last in the classification, we should probably talk about the elephant in the room first, which is McLaren, and that double disqualification. I don't think that's what they... Well, it's definitely not what they need for the drivers' championship. I mean, it's cut Lando's title lead from 49 points to 24 points, or 42 points to 24 points, with 2 rounds left. Maybe they have to increase the ride height for the last 2 races, and it'll take a performance away. But yeah, this is put in some much needed excitement into these final 2 rounds.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think the race was terribly entertaining, like in a vacuum and such, but definitely a great result for myself and the other Max fans. As far as quality goes, I know people who run the sport, they'll generally look at one race that has really high tire wear and base the rest of the technical regs off that. And I wonder if they'll see that having the wet tire in very wet conditions was quite entertaining and do the same, but I have my doubts on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the rare occasions we actually got to see the thing being used. I mean, I don't know if there were delays with the running of quali because it was in the middle of the night here, so I only watched the highlights. But yeah, I couldn't because of that. I didn't really fully appreciate that actually they're using the wet tire and they're letting them run. But yeah, it was a bit of a slip and slide. The final sector, they were drifting and everything. Albon crashed. It was and also this is the first time we've had a properly wet session at night as well, because like Singapore 2017, it was damp at the start and then it dried pretty quickly. There was a tiny bit of rain Singapore this year. I remember once there was a sprinkling of rain. It was Abu Dhabi 2018, but it wasn't enough to actually do that. But yeah, because most of the night races tend to either be in the desert or in the tropics, so they don't really get the rain. So that was quite significant. But even so, it was. If you look at McLaren's form, I mean, Lando got a very comfortable pole position. Piastri ended up 5th again, so that pecking order is still, that gap is still there between them, and that was reflected in the race as well. That yes, Lando lost the lead at the start, and he went a bit too deep at turn 1, and ultimately didn't quite have the pace to keep up with Max, which we kind of thought would happen because they know this is one of their weakest circuits. But Piastri himself, he was stuck behind Hadjar for a while, and he made that mistake and got passed by Leclerc, and his pace just wasn't there. So it was funny because he was obviously happy after the disqualification because I think he realizes we could ignore Max for the moment, but this has brought me closer to Lando. But yeah, this is not good for them for these final 2 rounds.
Yeah, definitely not. Piastri, he can't match Max at this rate. Max has good enough of a car to get the podium at least. And I mean, Russell's a great driver too. Those two and Norris, I think they're just going to prevent Piastri being podiums for the rest of the season. Looking at after today, no, quality was great though. That one corner after the long straight, the left, right, left. It's probably the only good part of the track in my opinion. But It was thoroughly interesting to watch them drift through that. Reminded me of some of the great old races in Long Beach and other great U.S. city tracks that we should probably go back to other than this. But no, it's what enough to where even some of the greatest drivers in the sport, like Max, are making mistakes, and it's kind of what we want to see, like a semi-perilous, high-stakes situation. And the wet driving provides that. We also got to see some bloopers, like Albon crashing, as well as Lewis Hamilton mistaking that one bollard for a Red Bull right rear tire.
Oh yes, yeah. He ran over it, and people wondered if it just got stuck under the car. It's yeah. I end up sort of looking forward to Vegas through gritted teeth, because when it first came about, I was like, this is just, well, it's stupid because the track is ridiculous. It's in the middle of the night for both Americans and Europeans, so nobody can watch it, and all of the cringe, the avalanche of one-off liveries, and all the other crap, and that. But the thing is, the races are actually kind of good, and the circuit has decent challenges because it's at night and the the track temperatures are the lowest all season. And obviously in qualifying, combine that with the rain, and you have a track which is basically a skating rink. And it's just sort of annoying because, again, I used to be kind of feel this way with Baku, and I'm like, actually, Baku is kind of amazing. And I feel like I'm going to go that way with Vegas, even though I really don't want to. But compared to Caesar's Palace, they've actually made something reasonably good. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, the McLaren's, in terms of the disqualification, before it was actually announced, I did wonder if they might get in trouble for this, because Piastri especially, there was lots of sparks coming off of the car, braking on the end of the back straight, and I was thinking that is running very low, and so maybe they'd get done. And there were talks earlier in the week about quote a team had been doing something illegal with their cars, which had been investigated and just ignored. And so now I'm left thinking, are we going to have a situation similar to Ferrari at the beginning of the year when they both got disqualified in China for plank wear, or one of them was underweight actually, but then since then they've had to raise the ride height and they've lost a lot of performance? Is that maybe McLaren are just going to lose all of their performance in Qatar and Abu Dhabi, for all we know?
It's a possibility. I don't think it'll be quite as severe as Ferrari. They don't quite have the same amount of underlying issues as they do. I didn't really notice live that Oscar had a lot of sparks until people had mentioned it after. I think most people during the race thought that the disqualification just would have been Lando running out of fuel. I think that's what most people assumed with the drop in pace. Turns out it was probably just a plink wear. Yeah, they might have a drop in pace in the next coming races, but Qatar's a great track for McLaren. Probably most likely that Lando will win that one. The car's still quick. I still think Max will win Abu Dhabi. My podium predictions for the last three races, and I just got Lando and Russell mixed up before the disquals, but other than that, it's been going pretty well so far.
Yeah, I mean, Qatar, it is a good McLaren circuit, although Max himself is excellent there as well. I mean, last year things kind of fell apart for McLaren a bit with the penalties and whatnot. The year before that, Oscar won the sprint race, but then Max won the main race. And then before that, it was Hamilton with that illegal engine. Yeah, but so we'll see with that one. I mean, this one, with Lando slowing down at the end, I mean, it would have been interesting if it had been fuel, because it's like, how badly do you need to make that error in terms of the amount of fuel? Because there were no safety cars or anything, and drivers don't really go that close to the bone with running out of fuel these days compared to like the 1980s or whatever. There is also apparently they have sensors on their planks that tell them like in real time how much wear there is, and maybe they notice right at the end that it was too much. And the thing with that is that I think that the excess wear was something like 0.2 of a millimeter, so something so inconsequentially small. And you wonder how this doesn't happen more often, because the cars are going to hit bumps and curbs all the time, and that alone is going to take stuff off the plank. How it doesn't wear down more, but yeah, the rules are rules, and if you go over it, then you have to, then that's it. You have to be disqualified. Yeah. So, but for Max, however, in Red Bull, yeah, that was a very good race for him. Took the lead at the start, comfortably won, and it kind of maximised it, because I thought if we don't have a disqualification, we really need a retirement or something like that from McLaren to keep him in. But we got that with the disqualifications. I imagine he's feeling good, and he's in. I mean, especially after he made lemonade from lemons in Brazil, the car seems to be in a better place. I think he's got For him, he's feeling good now. Tsunoda, just forget about it. Like, it was another disaster race, and they keep trying to turn the blame away from him and say, "Oh, we messed up because of strategy, or we sent him out at the wrong time in quali." And it's like, well, that's interesting because that never happens with Max, but Tsunoda, he always gets sent out at the wrong time, or he's always on the wrong tire, and that's always why. It's like, are we allowed to say that maybe it's just him is the reason that he's always at the back of the grid and Verstappen's always at the front? Maybe.
Yeah, I think as far as the plank wear that you had mentioned, probably just doesn't happen as often. Probably just doesn't happen too often, just because the teams leave a margin for error. We don't really know what it is, but it's probably like a millimeter or half a millimeter. Just depends on how risky teams need to be. Ferrari took too much risk, obviously, in China, but yeah, Tsunoda's side of the garage is not terribly run well, is it? I don't think it's entirely on Tsunoda, maybe mostly. Thinking about how F1 works, got to be wondering what his race engineer is doing and why. It's not like Tsunoda has a wildly different car. Still the same physical components, technically capable of the same things as Max is. You know, you don't expect him to do the same things, but when it's this gap over weekend by weekend, you got to ask what their race engineer is doing. Why the team isn't necessarily why the team might not be motivated to replace him if he's not doing well, etc.
I think at this point it makes a little difference, but also with the way the constructors is, it looks like Max is going to beat Ferrari to third almost single-handedly. That's the thing; they can just depend on Max a lot of the time. But Tsunoda, like, since he joined the team, he's been in Q3 7 times, whereas Max has been in Q3 every race except Sao Paulo. So that's quite, and then even then he's been, most of the time that he's been knocked out, he's had races where he's qualified last, he's been knocked out in Q1 a lot. It's just so far off the mark from where it should be. And their only saving grace, like I said, is that Max is pretty much always maximizing the performance, and that's kind of compensating in a lot of ways. But at this point, I think Tsunoda's days are numbered, really. He's probably going to end up getting dropped and just have nowhere to go next year, and then he'll return to Japan and do Super Formula and Super GT and all of that, and we'll see. They'll probably throw Hadjar in the car, rinse and repeat. Then it'll be Arvid Lindblad's turn, and then eventually Max will retire, and then they can have their teammates stop getting destroyed by him because he's not around anymore.
No, I think that's a good read on the situation. I think Hadjar would probably do a little bit better than Tsunoda, but also I did predict last year that Lawson would be a great teammate, so probably don't listen to me as far as Red Bull Juniors are concerned. Lindblad's pretty good. I'm sure he'll be fine in the V carb or whatever we're calling it nowadays. Good livery, by the way, this weekend. Quite enjoyed that one.
Yeah. That chameleon thing, that whatever it was it? I get them all. I've been researching all of this recently, so I'm getting them all mixed up. But V-Carb's liveries in January are very good, the one-off ones, but they're all a bit cringe because it's all like, oh, we're trying to flog some new credit card that Cash App's running, or Visa or whatever, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a kind of cringe, but otherwise it's like, yeah, let's just make a nice livery because I don't know, you could buy this sponsor crap. I mean, to say with Williams, their stealth livery was something to do with Atlassian's AI function as well, and all of that. But yeah, hey ho. But yeah, we haven't heard much on Lindblad recently, I suppose, because it doesn't help that there's been this 2-month gap in the Formula 2 calendar, because God forbid we drop any of the Middle Eastern races from the calendar. But that's next weekend, Qatar, the final 2 races to Q2, so they'll probably start talking about Lindblad again and whether or not he's going to appear in that seat. Hadjar has just been definitely outperforming Lawson. With Lawson, it's kind of sad now when you think about the amount of hype there was, and he was doing all the interviews and everything at the beginning of the year, and then it just collapsed after only 2 races. But that's just been the way the cookie crumbles with Max. But okay, so it's a 24 points behind. He's tied on points with Piastri. I think we can assume he's going to beat Piastri to second in the standings as a minimum. But he would need a lot of things to fall into place. Like, he needs to get at this point, to get the title, he needs to win all 3 races with Max, basically with Lando off the podium each time. And that is a huge ask. And my only thing I can think of is that the team just collapses, or they lose performance because they raise the ride height, or Lando himself starts having crap race starts again, or whatever. But it's good. We'll have to see what happens.
Well, we can only hope. Thankfully, right now, the best driver in the sport's winning the races in 69th. Um,
Hmm.
but we also kind of want to see the best driver win the title. I think most people would agree on that. I was looking at some possibilities. Seems like Norris getting a third place and a fourth place, and Max winning everything would do it. But the McLaren's just too quick for Norris fourth place, in my opinion. So I think something extraordinary would need to happen. We'll see. Yeah, as bad as V carbs or whatever liveries are, how cringe or simple they are, they're not quite as bad as Sauber's. That was terrible. It's like someone took a felt sander on their car and put it all over the composite. Um, Definitely less cringe than the Vegas show stuff too. Whether or not it was that Wicked two actors beginning and end speech, which just felt like AI generation, and then you had Mickey Mouse at the end, like water bending Piastri's tears, like the Avatar.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that, because I tend to try and ignore that. It went over my head. I've forgotten her name, but the Wicked actress. She's appearing, I think, as the movie's out promoting everything. She's appearing everywhere. I mean, she was a guest judge on Strictly Come Dancing in the UK a few weeks back and stuff, and it was like, this is just a bit random. She's not a dancer. Yeah, they had her there. Then Beyonce and Jay-Z were there as guests of Ferrari, and God only knows what was going on with Jay-Z's hair as well. There's very, very, very thick dreadlocks he had going on, and Beyonce, very, very tight, pushing everything in jacket. Yeah, but it's a race like this. You're going to get all the big celebs come out. I mean, I think Catherine Zeta-Jones was waving the checkered flag as well, and there was a bunch of other actors and whatnot there. But yeah, it's part of it. I remember when they raced in Caesar's Palace in the 80s, like Diana Ross would present the trophies and stuff. But yeah. But then the next team was Mercedes, who they really do relish this race because for some reason the cold temperatures just seem to really work with their car. This time it did, maybe not quite as well as they hoped because George he didn't have the pace to keep up with Red Bull, but he kept ahead of Lando for a large part of the race. Antonelli messed up qualifying, but then even with the 5-second penalty and the double qualification, he still got on the podium, so he had a hell of a race as well. So that's everything just it was a very, very good result in the end, and they're the ones people are looking at because the general vibe is that they've got the 26 regs down and they'll be at the front again. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, good on both Mercedes drivers. I thought they did quite well. The car did good as well. Probably Antonelli's the top three driver of the day. A lot of people are giving him praise for coming from the back of the grid and getting a podium. That's always good to see. Yeah, Russell had great pace near the beginning of the race. Kind of fell off near the middle. Yeah, his radio, it seemed like they indicated that they might be able to defend against Norris a little bit better. Like maybe for 3 or 4 laps, and then the next lap he just got passed like it was nothing. So I was a little bit confused about that one. Antonelli had his false start, just a little bit of rolling before he actually started. Nothing terribly bad, just something to not do again. As far as the race in general, though, you had turn one and you had Piastri struggling to pass a V carb and the Alpine, but other than that, I wasn't terribly entertained.
Yeah, it was so marginal that jump start with Antonelli. I mean, even like before the penalty was applied, he was only 2 seconds behind George at the end, so he really kept the pace on. And again, we saw in Brazil he held Max off, so he does seem to have really sorted himself out for the most part, and he's getting into a rhythm, and you do feel like he could be a real star in the future. So it's just a lot of really good things to take. I mean, admittedly, yes, very lucky that third and fifth became second and third, but still, but that's the name of the game. At the end of the day, your car was legal and there wasn't, so you reap the benefits of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sure.
yeah.
I think like most of the drivers that are new to their teams, they've kind of come into their own at this point, except Hamilton. Who knows what's going on with that really? But yeah, Antonelli, coming on in his team, Hajar, Behrman, etc. Like they're all doing good.
Yeah. Pretty much all of them. I mean, Colapinto, people say he's doing good, but it's really hard to tell in that car, to be honest. But it's all. I mean, the grid in general for other than one or two people is very good, and we seem to have got to a position where the driving standards we're not. There are so few pay drivers now and all the drivers are good in their own way, more or less. But that being said, yeah, Ferrari, it's very turbulent. Well, it's turbulent for one driver, certainly more than the other. I mean, Leclerc was very much in there, and he got fourth in the end, although the ultimate pace wasn't there. I mean, his comments after qualifying were interesting. He's just saying that our car has never worked in the rain, which is sort of true because that was the case with Vettel as well. The Ferraris were never brilliant in the wet. But then Leclerc himself is clearly not a very good wet weather driver. He's never really had any good wet races. So it might just be him as well. But then Lewis, I mean, okay, he qualified last, which first Ferrari driver to do that in 16 years. I think that's the first time he's ever done that. Certainly on pace, it's the first time he's ever done that. Okay, he had a very good start. He gained 6 places on the first lap and kept out of trouble. And he was making positions, like the race could have been worse considering he got himself into the points from last on the grid. But afterwards, he was very dejected and he was saying, the race was terrible. I did not enjoy it. I'm not looking forward to the last 2 races. I'm not looking forward to next year, which is a very interesting comments from Lewis. I mean, saying that, you know, even though for him it'd been a reasonably good race, all things considered, to go from last to finishing in the points, he then was like, well, no, I did not enjoy the race at all. I'm not looking forward to the final 2, and I'm also not looking forward to next season. Which suggests that he knows that they don't have a good car next year and they're not on top of the regs. And maybe he's concerned. I mean, because it's obvious that he does not enjoy ground effects because his performances have not been very well. They've been pretty abysmal by his standards since 2022. Maybe he's concerned with the new active area that's not going to work for him either. I don't know. But it seems like if he doesn't, he's obviously retiring at the end of next year as a minimum. I can't see why he would continue. But with those comments, you wonder if he might call it quits this winter.
I think he'll probably give 26 a chance. Probably has too much of an ego to let himself go this early. Be a lot of disappointment to his fans for sure. Part of the reason I was sort of a Lewis fan, like during the V8 era, was because he was like a young go-getter, very motivated and confrontational kind of guy. Somewhat controversial too. People forget that, and that made it entertaining and good to see a young person like me do well at the pinnacle of motorsport. But that Lewis seems very gone right now. You would still have flashes of it during this set of regs, but definitely not right now. I think Lewis is quite a sentimental person, and you know, there's stuff in his personal life that isn't going quite well. So that could definitely be part of it. No, Leclerc did quite well. He's in my top 3. Thoroughly entertaining to see him pass Piastri. Just such a ridiculous situation that Piastri's in that spot. Who knows why?
I mean, I saw that, honestly, because Piastri, that point, I think it was Hadjar he was behind. He got so close to him. I was like, okay, you've set yourself up to pass him, and then he just runs wide at the start of the straight. It's like, yeah, it's those elementary errors that you shouldn't be making.
Yeah, the V-Carb and Alpine, they're just too faster than McLaren, you know?
Yeah, they just can't do it. I mean, I know that Oscar has said they've changed something on the car that now means it doesn't work on his driving style, and maybe that's the case. I know he got in trouble because he reposted something on Instagram that was basically talking about how the team is favoring Lando and they've changed all this stuff, and then quickly deleted the repost and had to address it, which is funny. But it's like, yeah, we all know that he probably thinks that, and something has changed, and they've always had a bias towards Lando because he's British and he's been there longer and he's, you know, best buds with Zach Brown and blah blah blah. Yeah, but it's just not. It's just fascinating how it's collapsed because he's been off the podium now since Zandvoort or Monza, and his qualifying up until Monza he never was off the front 2 rows, and since then he's just plummeted from Baku onwards. It's really fallen apart. But with Lewis at Ferrari, because back in the early days, and this is something because I listened yesterday to the Brazilian podcast that Max did with Bortoleto recently, and they were talking about sim racing and how a lot of young drivers are kind of skipping karts and doing simulators more. And it's usually because Max is completely in with that, and he does iRacing and everything, and we saw he won that Nürburgring race and stuff. But Lewis is from an era when he started in Formula One. That was back when you still had basically unlimited testing mileage, and you didn't really use simulators. And he did so much testing in his first season and in preparation for it. And And he himself, he said he rarely, if ever, uses simulators, doesn't do sim racing. And these days, maybe that's just the way the sort of meta is that you need to be doing that. He's just like Alonso. He's a product of a bygone era in a lot of ways. But it's just this year. Thing is, in those last 3 seasons of Mercedes, we at least saw occasional flashes of brilliance, but there's been absolutely nothing of that in Ferrari because, okay, he won the sprint race in China, but all he had to do was lead from the front. And you look at the fact that they got disqualified after the main race, and you think, well, maybe they were doing something funny in the sprint as well, because other than that, they've never really had the pace. And he's had a few races where he's qualified, second row, but he's 2 races away from having a whole season of no podiums. Ferrari on course for a winless season. He's been absolutely smashed by Leclerc. And he's now 40 years old as well. So he's no spring. I mean, he's younger than Alonso, but he's no spring chicken. So he has to give up the ghost eventually.
Yeah, for sure. I could see if 26 doesn't go well, specifically for him, he would get out. Who knows what he would do after that? Probably just business or fashion, something like that. At least good for him for having enough mental flexibility to want to do other things. At least kind of like Lauda. I wouldn't say he's as good, but at least he's willing to branch out. Yeah, Piastri tweeting about maybe the team not favoring him. I mean, who can blame the team after Baku? I wouldn't be surprised if, like a few years down the line, it comes to the fact that the team just lost confidence and just started putting all the resources towards Piastri. Wouldn't be the first time McLaren has favored a teammate mid-season. Also, his tweet kind of reminds, or if I assume it was a tweet, kind of reminds me of when Hamilton leaked his own telemetry. So, maybe he's just taking inspiration there. Yeah.
It wasn't quite as severe as that, but it was just something where it's like, okay, it's also a case of it because everyone knows that the drivers over race weekends, they have someone that takes control of their account and posts for them. So maybe they did that rather than him personally, which would be interesting. But I feel like him. Maybe it was a misclick, but it's like you wouldn't. You know that people are going to see that immediately if you repost something like that, and maybe that was deliberate on his part, just trying to play mind games. For all we know, there's some kind of Santander saga style sabotage going on with them. I don't know.
I don't think they need something that big to sabotage these type of racers, but maybe for Kimi, not us.
No, it's just fascinating compared to how he was. He was so strong at the start of the season, and now it's just like nothing is working. And if any attempts to make something work, I mean, he shouldn't have got a penalty for what he did in Sao Paulo, but they just can't. It just doesn't work anymore. He tries something and makes a mistake, or his pace just isn't there, and it's really fascinating. When Lando was all over the place at the beginning of the season, and it's also kind of because I know that people are going to, even if he wins, people are going to bring up the whole Zandvoort and how he should be. He should really be 42 points ahead now, not 24, because of that engine failure. But that's again, reliability has always been a thing. You can't really avoid it.
Yeah, people will say that Norris should have won it by now, and he hasn't because of bad luck. The thing is, Norris put himself in a position to where that bad luck is irrelevant. So I don't really pay too much credence to those arguments.
Yeah, it's swings and roundabouts at the end of the day, and I mean we're just lucky that we live in an era where reliability isn't really a factor in determining titles anymore, because it was for basically every year up until like 5 years ago.
Yeah, Norris turned one though. He thought he was Michael Schumacher, but he ended up just being Lando Norris.
Yeah. So the next team up was Williams. So a mixture again, because I mean, Albon had another one of his trademark just train wreck weekends. As we said, he crashed in qualifying. I think he claimed that they were talking to him on the radio while he was going through a corner, and that was what did it. But then in the race, he got caught up in a bunch of stuff and was on the wrong tyres, and he crashed into Lewis as well, and so he just had a complete mare. And again, this is another thing, is it's like he was amazing against Sargent and Latifi, but they were Sargent and Latifi, and now he's against Sainz and he's doing all this stuff, and even against Colapinto, he kind of crumbled a bit. So maybe he isn't God's gift to Formula One that everyone thinks he is. But Sainz is really getting into a rhythm now. Really good from him, qualifying third, finishing fifth. I mean, they were going to always lose positions, but again, he he made the most of it, and you can tell that they just love having him there at Williams, because he's not like with Ferrari. The emphasis with Lewis was that he's a really good for marketing because he is his own brand. And because the team is a business and a brand and identity first and foremost, whereas Williams, even without the Williams family there, they still have that ethos. It's just passion for racing, and that's where Sainz is amazing because his technical knowledge is so good, and he's really helping them with car development and just his general experience and everything, and just racecraft and whatnot. And so even though he's still behind Albon in the points, he's catching him quite rapidly because Albon hasn't really scored points for quite some time now. But Williams things are going pretty well at the moment.
Yeah, if Albon made a mistake because he had a radio incident in a corner, I'm sure the other drivers had that as well, but they didn't make those same mistakes. And also, he's 6 years in the sport. I'm sure he's kind of used to that by this point. And also, there's just so many things to keep track of, whether or not it's the settings on the steering wheel or even the glare from the lights of Vegas on the corners. For it to be one thing like a radio, that's kind of ridiculous in my opinion. Maybe Albon having less than stellar teammates at Williams, maybe people being hopeful for him to be a team leader with James Vowles, maybe that kind of fueled a mythos that he was like as good as Russell or Leclerc. But seems like Sainz is probably dispelling that a little bit. We'll see how that continues in 26.
Yeah, I know that. I mean, maybe Sainz is starting to like it there as well. I'm sure he likes the fact that he's beating, well, a Ferrari and sometimes both of them, and commenting on the stuff that's been going on there and some of his comments over the weekend. He's starting to enjoy it now at Williams if he thinks there's potential, even though he kind of left against his will. But it's like, to be honest, Ferrari is a bit of a no-go zone. Leclerc himself is coming to realise this finally, because now the latest rumours are that his agent is trying to set him up with the seat with Aston Martin. Which doesn't sound entirely unrealistic. I suppose, obviously, Stroll is there forever, so he'd be as a replacement for Alonso. If, say, Alonso retires at the end of next year, we could home Aston Martin. Why not? Anywhere other than Ferrari, because if he keeps staying there, it's only going to reinforce the idea that actually he's the problem rather than the team. And I feel like someone as talented as him, he's been wasting his time with Ferrari. But when you're there for that long and people start to look at it as like, maybe Leclerc just isn't as good as we thought he was, but then it's just compared to Max, for example, there's a lot more obstacles to overcome at Ferrari. But it's also a shame that his whole career just feels like it's being wasted now.
Yeah, for sure. I really don't think I have too much to add on to that one.
Yeah. So after Williams, the next one is Racing Bulls. Another race of two halves. I mean, yeah, Hadjar was excellent. He qualified well. He ran well. He kept Piastri behind him for a while. He's coming in. He's getting into rhythm. He's doing really well. Lawson is still very erratic, though. I mean, he had that knock with, was it Piastri he hit at the start? And he got damaged from that, broke his wing, and they eventually gave up. And there's been now that you could say he's psychologically recovered from being dropped by Red Bull. He's had some good races, yes, but like it's just been Hadjar has been better in qualifying and he's had better performances, and he got that podium in Zandvoort. Lawson is just a bit too all over the place at the moment for my liking, considering his relative experience, because it's been more than 2 years since his debut. So he shouldn't really be getting beaten like this by Hadjar, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. Hadjar's coming into his own, like I said earlier. One of my favorite drivers of the season overall. Lawson, I don't think there's a future for him outside of the V-Carb team. We'll probably do a few more years at most, and then go on to WEC or something. Maybe there's more opportunity for him in those areas. But yeah, he just hasn't really proved himself or thoroughly defeated his teammate like he probably should.
Yeah, he just keeps being, we have Yuri Vips at home. Like we could have had actual Yuri Vips and maybe it would have been better, but not with Lawson. It's the Red Bull pipeline is dead until they get rid of Max, and he's not going to go back there. And as I said, because the driving standard is so high at the moment, and seats are so limited, you really, really have to stand out to get the attention of other teams, and he's not doing that enough. But in the Red Bull, in their junior category, as we mentioned him earlier, Arvid Lindblad is the only one that's really being talked about. I can't remember, because Ayumu Iwasa has been there for a while, but he's been doing Super Formula for ages. I think Pepe Marti left the Red Bull side, and Ollie Goethe, Tim Tramnitz, I have no idea. I get those ones mixed up. Because I barely pay attention to Formula 2 and Formula 3 anymore. I can't remember who's who. There's not. Lindblad is the only one anyone is talking about. And again, he's very young. He's only just turned 18. So I guess same age as Antonelli was. But
Yeah.
Lawson's, there's just nowhere to go. But also, the whole idea of having this B team that's like a springboard isn't really working. And it would help if they didn't keep changing the name of the team every year. And it gets closer and closer to Red Bull in name. And it's like, and I don't even know, as a constructor, is it VCarb? Is it RB? Which one is it? Why couldn't they have just stayed as Toro Rosso?
I'm not sure. Some boardroom decisions and people thinking they're smarter than they are. But I don't follow the junior categories terribly close, just because as bad as the F1 tech regs are, the F2 ones are worse. So kind of dissuades me a little bit. From what I hear, Lindbald's pretty decent. He'll probably be in the seat next year, and if Lawson doesn't beat Lindblad, that's terrible for him. He'll probably get out next year if that's the case. But who's going to replace him, right? So maybe they'll pull in a driver from another program. That's possible as well.
Yeah, I mean, every so often there are IndyCar drivers that they have musings about. They were talks of Alex Palou, Colton Herta and Pato O'Ward are still linked to McLaren, but with Pato, for example, he's not. If we assume that both of those guys are staying at McLaren, they're not going to take him in. They're just going to, bring him out for Mexico just for marketing or whatever. But the other. With F2, Formula 2, the Mechachrome engines are bullshit. The whole series is just a colossal waste of money because there are loads of drivers that are like, this sucks. And then they go and do endurance racing and suddenly they're amazing. And they're like, this is what we can do now. Because in Formula 2, the cars, they're not all the same. A lot of them don't work. They don't even drive well. It's just a complete waste of time. And they really need to fix that. Or to have more than one option, because back in the day, you weren't just limited to that. You could do like the World Series by Renault or Formula Renault 3.5, or any of these other series would be considered an appropriate springboard to Formula 1, whereas now it's just Formula 2. So that needs fixing. And it's half the reason I haven't really been paying attention to the races, partly because they're on early in the morning, but also I just don't care because it feels kind of meaningless watching that championship now.
I think that's I think that's pretty precise assessment of that whole situation. Probably a bit more precise than Bortoletto's breaking point in turn 1, though.
Yeah, Sauber, again, another team race of two halves. So Hulkenberg, great race, finished 7th. He did that thing again, even with that crappy, final lap livery, paying farewell to this noble, as if Kick Sauber is something anyone's going to care about in the past as a team, that 2 year stint. That dive bomb for Bortoletto was enormous. I mean, he's had... That's the thing. He's crashed in all of the last 3 races now, and quite dramatically as well. So he's not having a particularly good end to the season. But who did he ran into Albon, I think, and then Albon hit someone, or he nearly hit, because it was Lawson that hit Piastri. I think there was an Alpine in there. I think Gasly got turned around. I've forgotten exactly who it was, but he screwed himself over with that. So that's less than ideal.
Yeah, it was simply that he had too much of a myopic focus on the car in front of him, just trying to pass him instead of thinking about where he was on the track. At the same time, he didn't have the same references because, he just wasn't on the racing line, not the same muscle memory. So that was part of it. That part of the track had also been dirty, but those still aren't enough excuses for what he did, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that turn 1 is great because it's a very tight one. We've seen mistakes there every time. I remember 2023 because they were saying how cold the track was. It's like everyone's going to just go and run wide with cold tyres on it. And people do seem to struggle to judge it. But it's creates a lot of drama. I think it was Stroll he actually hit there. But then we had the Haas ones. So, Behrman ended up behind Ocon, which was interesting because Behrman had a very good first lap. He gained 6 positions. He got up to 8th. He was running there fell behind in the end. Ocon's got some points finally because Ocon has been abysmal in qualifying for a lot of the year, and Behrman, since they brought the upgrades, has really, again, he's really come into his own and started doing well. Like, I mean, yeah, all the rookies are doing well at the moment, except maybe Bortoletto, I guess.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about Haas. They were fairly anonymous during the weekend, but they didn't do bad despite that. It was just they didn't really have many incidents with other drivers. Not much passing, but they did well by themselves. Ocon's still a good driver, even if he's not as good as at quality. He might not be as good as Barron talent wise, in my opinion, but he still has his place in F1 for sure. He's a good driver. We were talking about the track a little bit. Yeah, turn one's nice for the first lap, and then you have that sector 3 slow part that I think is a great part, but other than that, I'm not impressed with it in general. Also, with the Alonso complaining about the asphalt and such, I have the same complaints because I've driven in Vegas myself. The Miata is a power off oversteer car, but ended up being a power on oversteer car for me. When I was there, that caught me by surprise. So I'm glad to see the F1 drivers echoing my concerns as too.
Yeah, I mean, there's also just infrastructure issues because they again had concerns about loose manhole covers. This time it didn't cause any accidents, but even so, that's just basic things like that they need to fix. And they've sorted a lot of the thing just in terms of management hospitality because we had the whole cancelling FP1 and not giving refunds, and then blocking out the walkways so you can't just watch for free. And some people were watching on CCTV cameras or something. They've sorted that out, so now it runs a bit better as an event. But the circuit, yeah, those corners are good. I mean, a lot of the circuit is kind of forgettable. And the thing is, at night, it looks more or less indistinguishable from Singapore. You can't really see the strip unless you're driving, maybe. From the driver's perspective, they can see all of that, all the casinos and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really have that. Although there was one interesting comment, because I don't know if this was a meme that people have made up, but Tsunoda and Colapinto were complaining about fireworks after the race and being like, oh, well, we've got you're disturbing the animals and everything. And it's like, yeah, are you sure? I'm sure the cars definitely don't wake them up, but it's the fireworks that are going to set them off. Or Tsunoda was talking about insects being attracted to all the lights. I was like, this must be made up, because why would they care about this?
Well, they're in the middle of the Mojave Desert. I've lived there. There's no insects. I'm sorry, Sonoda. Also,
Yeah.
like maybe if Vettel were there, maybe the bees would be woken up as well. But yeah, I'm not terribly impressed with Vegas. I rated it like probably slightly under Valencia, but not by too much. I don't think either track's good, but I think it's around that ballpark, honestly.
If it was a daytime race, it wouldn't be nearly as good, I don't think.
Yeah, we were promised these romantic scenes of the beautiful liveries going down the strip and seeing the palm trees and such, but the sport is just too safe right now for that kind of thing to happen. It kind of just looks like a blown up Singapore, but with worse corners, and it's just not great.
Yeah. But it's here to stay with that 10-year contract, so we'll have to put up with it for a long time. Okay, so then we had Aston Martin. If Asia was here, I'm sure he'd go on for 15 minutes about their strategy. Of course, with Stroll, there's not much to say because he got ploughed into by Bortoletto at the start, although he hadn't qualified well anyway. Then Alonso dropped from 7th to 11th, and that's including the disqualification. So he lost 6 positions. So something really went wrong there. But yeah, a bit of a forgettable race for Aston Martin in the end.
Yeah, not too much to say. Stroll was okay, but not terribly impressive. I thought Alonso did quite well. Yeah, he had some opinions about this track that I agree with, but no, he was doing good. It was just he doesn't have the car under him. I hope, as he's probably he's the representative of the V10 era still, in my opinion. I hope he does well for that sake. He's kind of the bastion of the old guard.
Yeah, in a way that Lewis just isn't quite in that era, because Lewis never raced the V10 era, even though he goes back before DRS and Pirelli and everything. Alonso goes back it's literally 6 years earlier than that. Then final team Alpine. So they've clearly improved in the past 2 races because Gasly has made Q3 and he got points in the sprint and the thing in Singapore. And this time I think he got caught up in that first lap stuff and had a pretty poor start, even though he'd made Q3. So that just ended up throwing the race away. And Colapinto, again, as great as people say he's doing, he's still getting knocked out in Q1 and Q2, and he's never anywhere near points, so it's really hard to tell. And now it's showing a bit more because Gasly has been having this better pace. But yeah, another very forgettable race for them.
Yeah, I didn't have too much on them. I had forgotten which of the Alpines was defending against Piastri again.
Neither of them. It was.
Oh, okay. I must be mistaken. Oh, I think I know what it was. I mistook the livery for Williams. My bad.
Yeah. Of course, that's another because Williams. That's obviously. I think they've got Alpine have got the Mercado Libre one for 3 races or something. So they had their own livery. There was like 4 or 5 teams that had special liveries. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the livery is a little less special when everyone's doing them all the time. But
Yeah. There's a bit too many of them, and it's and also that some of them are quite half-hearted attempts, which doesn't help. But yeah, so the race itself, okay, probably the worst of the 3 Vegas races we've seen, but that disqualification means it's still game on for these last 2 races. But yeah, so for the race, tops and flops. Tops of the race, well, for me, Verstappen, Antonelli, and I suppose Sainz maybe.
yeah, Sainz did quite well. Probably do Max Antonelli, and Leclerc. Yeah.
Flops of the race, well, McLaren. I suppose Hamilton and I think Bortoletto for that lunge at the start.
Really. Yeah, probably Bortoletto, Piastri for being in the situation he was in. And it's hard to say otherwise, but probably just Formula One management for being so terribly cringe.
Yep. So, well, another long season is rapidly approaching its end. We go back to the Middle East again, the final 2 races, but at least it's a triple header, so they'll come and go quickly. Yeah, 24 points in it. Max and Oscar are tied on points. Let's wait and see what happens in Qatar.
I can only hope that the best driver gets the best result. No, it makes it interesting, not because of the regs or anything, but because of the point situation. Stranger things have happened in the sport, obviously, 86, '07, etc. I think maybe Prost was more skilled at that point, as crazy it is to say, Kimi about equal, but regardless of that, it would be the greatest comeback in the sport's history.
Yeah, and we've had it in 86 and '07 and 95. We need redemption for 1996. We need this to not. We don't need another 96, I think. You've been listening to the DRS Train podcast. We're on YouTube and Spotify, and you can find us on Instagram and X at the DRS Train podcast. If you become a channel member, you can get access to bonus scenes, behind the scenes footage, all these extra features, and you can join our current members, Burak Choshkun, Gisel Bedell, Elizabeth Hearn, Chris O'Dea, and Blue Guy. Make sure to tune in for our next episode. Stay safe, and we'll see you all next time.